Alrighty, so back to Three Force Home. All that's left are these stories that were like, I guess in the main game you can actually get different ones that Ben will read you during the car ride. I don't know. I got the same one twice. So I don't know if that's for real, but whatever. There's other stories. So let's read through them and see what other stories could be, because that's all that's really left. So Wander in the Waste. Oh my gosh. Dad, please don't let Mom read this one. Oh shit. Is it naughty, Ben? What did you write? Nothing waits for you in the waste, she said. The words echoed in the wanderer's ear as he walked, his pace ragged and uneven. I am dying, he said to himself. In every direction, an identical path, not mirrored, not unchanged, but identical nonetheless. The wanderer did not understand it himself, but it was true. He turned his head, yet the image before remained familiar, changed in the ways that only men find important, but the footfalls remained unchanged. The handholds were the same. Every direction led to one destination, one he had not set out for, but one that pulled with an inescapable gravity. I am dying, he said again to no one. His words felt muted. The air passed between his lips, but were muffled, weakened. I am dying, he said once more. You go in search of that which you do not want to find, she said. With each step, the wanderer felt his mind twist in on itself. His breath came in desperate, raspy gulps. With each step, his footprints weakened. The ashen indentations lost definition, disappearing. The wanderer felt himself fading. Desperate, he clumsily felt for the flask strapped to his thigh. I have strength to carry on, he said to himself. The world heard only a gurgling sigh. I must leave. The woman shook her head. You are wrong, she said. The wanderer came upon a tree. He turned his head about to see if this apparition would follow its gaze, as did every other landmark. It did not. The wanderer stumbled to the tree, placing his palm against it. Beneath the bark, he felt a warmth, pulsating beneath his fingertips. It spoke to him. You are dying, it said. I am, the wanderer agreed. You are a fool, the tree said. No, I am not. Then you are blind. I see you well enough. You hardly see at all. The wanderer closed his eyes, thinking that the tree spoke a truth that he did not quite understand. As his eyes closed, his palm fell into empty air. The tree had gone. The path lay before him in every direction. The wanderer walked. You are a fool, the woman said. You know not the danger, the woman said. The wanderer stood upon a precipice. Below, a city long dead lay in ruin. His fingertips brushed the flask strapped to his thigh. 1/4 full. I promise myself to you, the wanderer said. The woman looked at her eyes piercing into his heart. I believe you, she said, but you will break your promise. Never. She closed her eyes, her head tilting downward, the intricate jewels upon her forehead chiming a sad note. You are mistaken, wanderer. The wanderer emptied the flask, droplets spilling onto his cracking lips. Tossing the flask aside, the wanderer spoke. A lie, he said. The wanderer stood before a gate, hewn from burnt timber, dark in the way that only those things which once held light can be dark. A figure stood atop the gate, robed and gazing upon the wanderer with contempt. You have reached your destination, wanderer, but why you wish to come here I still do not comprehend. You laid your hand upon my breast, and even then you did not believe me. The wanderer could not find the strength to speak. I do not understand what you say. Has the time when the waste addled your mind? My mind is untouched. You are speaking in riddles. Riddles! Oh, wanderer, I assure you, I speak plainly. If I wanted to riddle, I would choose one wiser and cleverer than you. You insult me. I am honest. I apologize if it is foreign to you. You are foreign to me, Spectre. I am afraid not. It is you that is foreign to yourself. You have grown a stranger to me, she said. What do you mean? You know, she said. The figure shifted its weight, leaning over the rampart. You ridicule me, the wanderer managed to croak, the words painful. The figure said nothing. You torment me! This place is of your making! The wanderer reached for his flask, as if by reflex. His fingers found only a spot worn into denim, the flask long cast away. Wake, my love, he said. I am awake. You must go back to her, he said. I cannot. You are a fool, he said. The gates creaked open before the wanderer, revealing a place cast so heavily in shadow as to be heavy with it. You have chosen this path, the figure bellowed. Come or be gone. The wanderer stood before the open gate, feeling the emptiness of his frame. And if I do not, then you may wander these wastes. There must be another option. The figure turned away. I grow wary of your indecision. It is no longer of any importance to me. You have all of the guidance you will receive. The figure appeared to descend an unseen staircase. Wait, the wanderer pleaded. There is much I must yet ask of you. The figure did not answer. I felt your path when I first felt your heart, she said. I am not pained, she said. But for you I grieve, she said. Take your leave, she said. Your path lies in the wastes. Through no other journey will you find peace, she said. The wanderer stood before the open gate, unmoving, a great terror spreading through his chest. I am dying, he spoke aloud. I am sorry. I keep burping. Apologies. The waste gave no response. His hand once again brushed the worn spot on his thigh, searching for drink. I am empty, he spoke aloud. He took a step. I am abandoner. He strode to the great gate's threshold. I am dishonored. He hesitated. I am frightened. A light cut through the darkness ahead, illuminating a single tree. You are blind, the tree said. No, said the wanderer. I believe I may finally see. He took a step into the thick veil beyond the gate. Do you love him? She asked. I do. Then you have chosen your path, she said. I did not wish for this to happen. You must wander all the same. You cannot stay here, she said. I do not want to. I will change. I will love you. No, she said. You won't, she said. And you shouldn't, she said. The wanderer stood before the solitary tree once again, his palm outstretched. He leaned into the tree. You are dying, the tree said. Yes, I am, the wanderer agreed. Do you regret your path? The wanderer hesitated. His breath came in shallow gasps. He recalled the disdain in her eyes. He felt himself dying. No, the wanderer finally said. The tree assumed a new shape. The figure now stood before the wanderer. Good, the figure said, smiling. Will you come with me? Yes, the wanderer said. Close your eyes, said the figure. Close your eyes, she said. "Close your eyes," he said. "Come with me," said the figure. "Go with him," she said. "Come with me," he said. "And wake. Your path is not yet ended." "You were sleeping," he said. "I didn't mean to wake you," he said. Alright, so that's the first one. With the Wanderer in the Wastes. Decent enough. I still like the first one I've read from Benji before that one, but still good. Alright, let's do The Orchard. The Orchard. A woman sat in her orchard, her mind aloft a gentle breeze. She contemplated the trees before her. 977 apple trees, unadorned and grey as steel, arranged in an immaculate grid. A single leaf hung suspended from a spider's silk, twirling in the chilled air. She felt troubled. This leaf, it did not belong. Every last tree lay bare, save for this single leaf. Standing, she strode to the tree. Reaching for the leaf, she found it just beyond her grasp. Jumping, her fingertip brushed against it, sending it into a wild spin. But it did not fall. After a moment's hesitation, the woman removed her canvas slippers, preparing to scale the tree. Grabbing the lowest branch, she flipped herself upward with a preternatural grace. Ascending the tree in a spiral trajectory, she soon found herself perched above the leaf. She pondered this imperfection, this aberration, a solitary remnant of a summer long past, a summer her people remembered only in verse. How was it that this leaf survived so long? How had it defied the rest of the world, refusing to move on, as did everything and everyone else? The sound of the machine broke her reverie. She had lingered in this place too long. Alright, again, I'm down with it. I'm down with it. Alright, 3, 4, something. That's the name of the game. What is this one? Oh, jeez. Alrighty, let's see it. Jackie sat atop his father's shoulders, arms draped around his neck, near the back of the crowd massed before the launch pad. Everyone had a loved one aboard the ship, towering a mile high into the atmosphere. For Jackie, it was his sister. For the young man quietly crying beside him, it was his father. For 3,125 parents, their children. For 4,933 children, their parent. It was the 357th launch, not quite halfway through the planned 800 rockets bound for the Exodus, a colossal vessel assembled in orbit around Mars. The last hope for our species, the minister had called the program when it was announced 30 years before. Our only hope for survival. By the nation's official census, the Earth's entire countable population stood at 10 million in 2232. By year's end, only 75 million would remain. The rest, 1/4 of the population, would be en route to the Exodus, bound for the depths of space to find something new. To find hope. What that meant, no one particularly knew, or at least no one would say. They are our greatest explorers, the minister had said, and most likely the last of our species to leave the surface of the Earth. Jackie watched as the rocket's boosters lit, counting the seconds until the roar washed over the crowd. He thought about his sister, strapped into the cavernous hull. He thought about the years she had spent in quarantine in preparation for the voyage. He thought about when he was allowed to say goodbye, through 6 inches of glass, her face distorted, monstrous looking. He thought about how he would probably never see her again. The first reports of the condition began in 2138. It was an illness that behaved strangely, affecting each individual differently. Symptoms ranged from those closely resembling a common cold to those that mimic leprosy. It was difficult to diagnose, impossible to treat, and it spread with an urgency that seemed designed.
In 2180, 90% of the human population of Earth was dead. In 2193, nation was formed in an attempt to corral the last remnants of humanity within its borders. In 2195, the borders were closed permanently, leaving an estimated 100 million outside. It was unknown if any of that population survived. The condition persisted, but methods of treatment became precise, brutal, and necessary. Every newborn was implanted with a biometric reader that constantly tested the blood for any presence of the condition. If any was detected, it treated the disease with the only effective method for eliminating it, by releasing an acid into the blood that boiled the body's organs from within. Even with this method of disease control, the human population continued to decline. Transmission was tricky to prevent. Quarantine measures were developed that managed to stave off the disease, but the expenses required limited application to those who had managed to cling to wealth. In 2205, the nation's minister announced the Exodus program at once, both the most ambitious project humanity had ever undertaken and its most desperate. The government seized all quarantine facilities, using them to isolate 100 engineers and scientists for the 6 years it had been determined would effectively eradicate the possibility of the condition lurking undetected in their population. At the end of their internment, they were loaded into a sterilized hull of a rocket bound for Mars. Halfway between Earth and Mars, the rocket fell into orbit around the Sun, where it would remain for a decade. The vacuum of space serving as a final measure against any contamination by the condition before the sterile inner hull separated and made the final leg of the journey to Mars. Upon arrival, the group of 100 began construction on the Exodus, using material shuttled to the planet by near-continuous launches from Earth. Once construction was complete, it was accepted that these engineers would perish at their final outpost. 2225 marked the year that the government began to determine who would make the journey to the Exodus. Every family was required to submit at least 2 members for evaluation. Official policy held that each candidate's fitness for the program was screened extensively. In reality, the dearth of bodies for the program meant that essentially every person submitted as a candidate was accepted into the program, including infants and the elderly. Prisons were nearly emptied as family members were quick to offer their incarcerated members as candidates. It was a motley bunch, to be sure, but the project was not a scientific venture. It was a last-ditch attempt to keep the human race in existence, whatever the cost. Jackie's sister was taken by men in dust-colored suits when she was only 17. His mother and father had watched in silence. Jackie's grandfather was also taken as a candidate. He was 72. "Are you afraid?" Jackie, now 14 and staring at his sister's prematurely aging face, asked. His voice was shaky. "No, I'm excited to tell the truth. But Dad says that no one even knows if the Exodus will be finished by the time everyone gets there. They'll have 10 years from the time we launch. I have faith." "You do?" "Of course. Besides, anything has to be better than this." She waved her hand, gesturing to the isolation chamber she had been kept in for the past 5 years. "I imagine that it'll be quite beautiful either way. Are you afraid?" "I'm trying not to be." "You shouldn't be. I won't be coming back either way." As the rocket's flare faded out of sight, Jackie tapped his father on the head, asking to be let down. "So that's that, bud." Jackie's mother did not come to the launch. "Dad, I am going to write more for this one. I should get a new video game when I finish it. Ben, we'll talk about it." Aw, he's so proud of it. He's like, "I deserve a game for this. I did good. I did very good." True, true. The drunkard. Alright. Oh shit, another long one. A man slept over the table in the corner, his breath heavy and vaporous. Henry watched him from the corner of his eyes, wiping down tables as he had already cleaned 3 times over. The man did not seem to notice, his eyes fixated on the glass before him. He's been here every night for nearly 3 years now, the bartender had told Henry earlier. That day, his first on the job. Never really says much. I think he's foreign, but I can't be sure. The man's droopy, leathery eyelids fluttered briefly, as if he were about to pass out. Henry leapt instinctively forward, toward the man's table, to grab the half-full glass of bourbon before this man smashed it with his face. When his hand closed on the glass, the man grabbed Henry's wrist with a quickness that he could not have anticipated. "What do you think you're doing, young man?" The man spoke with an odd cadence, perhaps an accent that Henry could not place. Oops, supposed to have an accent. Sorry. "I'm sorry? I thought you were about to, take a nap in your glass," Henry stammered. "I was just deep in thought, sir." "Oh, sorry." The man realized he was still clamped onto Henry's wrist and let him free. That was still not with an accent. I apologize. "It's fine. No worries." Henry forced a smile, the fumes of alcohol billowing from the man's body making his eyes water. "Would you like to hear a story?" the man asked. Sorry, a what?" "A story. It's what I was thinking about. Would you like to hear it?" Henry glanced at his watch. His shift had been over for 5 minutes without him realizing it. Against his nose's better judgment, Henry nodded and sat across from the man. "Did I ever tell you about the time I was in a war?" "Did you ever—" "No, sir. This is the first time we've spoken." "Nonsense. I know a familiar face when I see one. But I don't think I've told you about it yet. I was in a war, you see, back in my homeland." "Where's that?" Ben asked, thinking he'd get on the bartender's good side by learning this bit of information. The man waved his hand, dismissing Henry's inquiry. "That does not matter. It was a war, and a war is the same no matter where you're from. We were fighting the good fight, as everyone always does in war. Freedom! We shouted, running in and dying for people who thought they deserved power more than whoever else was wielding it at the time. Those details aren't important. I didn't want to fight, you know. I was wealthy. My family owned a big, what's the word? Manse? A house. It was a big house, with servants and gardens and a wine cellar. I miss that wine cellar. I didn't want to fight, see, because what did it matter to me? I was safe, I was fed, and I had all the wine I could drink." "What happened?" Henry asked. The man squinted his eyes, smirking a bit. "I fell in love with one of my family's servants. We had to sneak around, but it didn't matter. It was love. I asked her to marry me. When she said no, I demanded to know why. You know what she said?" "She was a servant, so that wouldn't work." The man pounded his fist dangerously close to his glass. The near miss seemed to remind him that the glass was there, so he took a deep swig before wiping his lips and staring back at Henry. "I wish that was the case. Turns out she was a member of the revolt, and she was sent to spy on my family. I was shocked, but the blindness of love kept me from anger. I told her I would fight for her. I would follow her to the ends of the earth, fight whoever it took to keep her close." The man fell silent. "I never saw her again. She simply—" The man made a flying motion with his hands. "Disappeared. I left home and joined the first militia I could find, thinking that I'd be able to find her. And that is how I ended up fighting a war. For love." An ugly look fell upon the man's face as he spoke these words. "Did you find her?" "No." The man tilted his head back, pouring the last of the bourbon down his throat. "Get me another drink, will you?" I'm actually not—" Henry began to protest. Okay, sure. Be right back." Taking the glass, Henry strode to the bar, motioned for the bartender. "The guy in the corner needs another whiskey." "Aren't you off?" the bartender asked, filling the glass to the rim. "Yeah, but this guy, he's interesting." "You're talking to him? Is that weird?" "He's just never really talked to anyone here before. Besides, more please and thank you, I mean." "Could be he's just that drunk?" "Could be," the bartender agreed, handing the full glass of bourbon back to Henry. Turning, Henry began to walk to the man's table, only to see it empty, a small stack of bills and coins left neatly on the counter. Guess he decided to run out for the night. the bartender said. He nodded to the glass of whiskey in Henry's hand. You can have that, if you want. No, I'm good. The man was sitting at the table, glass in hand, when Henry arrived the next afternoon. Near the end of his shift, Henry was, again, waved over to the table. Would you like to hear about the time I fought in a war? Befuddled, Henry stammered, You told me yesterday. Yesterday? Nonsense, I did not. Take a seat. I will tell you all about it. Henry turned his head to his boss. Standing behind the bar, pointing at his watch, Henry gave him a pleading look. His boss nodded, giving his approval. Okay, sure, I'll bite. Henry sat down in the chair opposite the man. I was a street rat as a kid, you know. My parents left me on a street corner one day, and I never saw them again. So I grew up homeless. You tend to crime when you live like that. It's the only way to eat. You weren't wealthy? Oh, goodness, no. Whatever could have given you that idea? Quite the opposite, actually. Like I said, I was a criminal, but only to stay alive. Well, one day, I tried to pick the pocket of the wrong person. Turns out he was a policeman. Cuffed me on the spot as soon as I reached for his wallet. My country was on the brink of war at that point, and pretty much any criminal was locked away without a trial. I guess that they figured they didn't have the time for such things. I was in jail for 3 years. How was it? What do you think? We were piled 5 to a cell, not much bigger than this table here. The man framed the table with his hands for effect. Not the piece of shit, but the drain in the floor. I didn't think it went anywhere. The smell was so bad. Henry shifted in his seat uncomfortably, hoping that the man would change the subject. For 3 years, I lived like an animal. Until one day, all of us prisoners heard a commotion outside. Screaming, shooting. Then all of a sudden, a huge explosion. It was so bright, I thought I would be blinded. I must have been knocked out, because the next thing I knew, someone was there, face wrapped up in a black cloth, was helping me to my feet. We have freed you, he said to me. Come fight for us. We will help others like you. He was a rebel? A freedom fighter is what they like to call themselves. I didn't know that they were fighting for, really, but they liked the idea of freedom, so I joined their cause. The man took a long gulp from his glass. Turned out they were just as bad as the ones they were supposed to be fighting. After years of war, I ended up back in jail, arrested by the very people who gave me freedom before. After I managed to escape, I left my country and never went back. That's awful, Henry said. Shouldn't be a surprise, young man, the man gurgled through the last of his bourbon. Always is. After swallowing, he handed the empty glass to Henry. Grab me another one, will you? Sure thing. Henry took the glass to the bar, where the bartender gave him a knowing look. Another story? The bartender asked. Yeah, it's weird, though. He's acting like he didn't know me from last night. And his story was completely different. I think he might be making it up. He's fall over drunk. Of course he doesn't remember you from yesterday. I wouldn't be surprised if he's making it all up either. The bartender took the glass from Henry, going to fill it before stopping. He's gone again, you know. Henry whipped around to find the table once again empty. He's pretty sneaky for a guy who drank most of a bottle of bourbon. Henry had the next day off of work, but spent the entire day thinking about the man and his stories. After hours plugged into a search engine on the hunt for the country that the man may have come from, he was left empty-handed. Near the end of the evening, the knowledge that the man would probably be seated at his table nagging at him, he drove to the restaurant. Sure enough, the man sat at the table, wearing the same dingy outfit from the 2 days prior. Henry, his boss called at him from behind the host stand. What are you doing here? You do know that you have the day off, right? Yeah, I just wanted to, He pointed to the man at the table. Whatever, Henry. No free food, though. Not when you're off the clock. Of course, Henry quickly agreed before walking to the man's table, strangely excited. Hey, can I get you a drink? Henry asked. The man looked up, regarding Henry with a look that made it clear he had no idea who he was. After a moment, the man shook his head, holding a full cup of bourbon up to Henry. Maybe in the next one. Take a seat, though. I want to tell you a story. Sure, Henry said, sitting down. What's the story? I fought in a war once, you know. Yeah? Were you a prisoner? A prisoner? Goodness, no, I would never. The man exaggerated offense. What are you trying to say about me, eh? Taken aback, Henry could not find the words to answer. Oh, calm down, young man. I'm just having some fun. At your expense, of course. Henry exhaled, the sense of panic receding. So, you were in a war? How did that happen? I didn't even live in the country. My sister did. She moved there with her husband after they were wed. He was from there, you see. I tried to convince her not to go. Even then there were rumors of rebellion. But she was in love, and he was rich. There was nothing to be done. When the war broke out, she sent me a letter. He said that her husband had been taken prisoner, and that she was left alone in her big house. She wrote that she would be fine, that she had a plan. But I felt uneasy about the situation. So you went to find her? Henry asked. Of course I did. Sneaking across the border wasn't easy. I had to hide in a cart full of potatoes. If I'm going to ask you to do that, don't. I had bruises for months. I won't? The man slurped some whiskey. Good. Once I was into the country. I had to travel by foot. It took weeks to get to the town she lived in. And once I did, it was... A distant look sank into the man's eyes. It was horrible. Every house burnt or bombed. Nothing was left standing. That's horrible. The man closed his eyes tightly, the effort of trying to forget a memory creasing his forehead. It was. I found the house she was supposed to live in. It was like everything else. I was devastated. I wailed. I screamed. I cried for help. But there wasn't a soul in miles. I slept on the wreckage. I resolved in my mind that I would fight whoever did this. I was convinced that they had killed my sister. The next morning, I made for the closest town. It had fared somewhat better. The right people still milled about the streets. I asked who had done this to them. It was the government, they said. I asked how I could help. They gave me a map with the location of a rebel camp, set up in the woods a few miles away. I walked all night to the camp. The moment I arrived, I pledged my life to their cause. And that's how I ended up in a war. For revenge. The man's eyes finally opened as he tilted the bourbon into his mouth. I fought for 3 years in a country that was not my own, until the government fell and some new maniac was put in power. I had to sneak out of the country I fought for. My own country shut down the border because of all of the violence. But you got home? Henry asked, enraptured by the latest tale. I did. And who do you think I found living in my home? The man waited a brief moment. Not long enough for Henry to hazard a guess. It was my sister and her husband. He escaped captivity and they fled the country. I received their letter. I sometimes wonder if we passed each other when I was buried beneath all of those potatoes. I don't know why, but I became so angry. I nearly killed her husband. I just lost control. He may have actually died. I don't know. My sister, she screamed, told me it was my own fault for not listening to her. Said she never wanted to see my face again. So I ran. I ran until I got to this country. You haven't talked to your sister in all that time? No. Sometimes I wonder if she's still living in my home. The man fell silent, swirling a bit of whiskey left in his glass. I don't mean to offend you, sir, Henry began, his curiosity in the best of him in the silence. But is that story true? The man looked Henry straight in the eye, clarity sharpening his own. Their eyes remained locked for a long moment, before a smile cracked in his weathered face. I get the feeling he was full of shit. Or he's like something, he's part of something, he's just making shit up. Alright, let's see what Untitled is. Mountains. Oh, so Untitled is the one that we read through in the story. Okay, I'll click through it, but I'm not gonna, read it again, because I've read this twice now. Because, yeah, this is definitely the one we read through, because with the Raw and the Beast. Okay, I get it all. Idea for title, and the wind will lift away our rot. Well, we know that. Because that's what the whole thing was called. So maybe that is the one that's saying. Alright, so that's all the stories. Sure, why not? Let's return to the main menu, because there's nothing left. But that should have been all the extras that there's been, because I don't know any more, because there's another thing for, completing everything. Did I not do it right? Oh! Oh, shit! No, I did. Okay, okay. Next, new scene? Oh, shit. Oh, shit! Yeah, okay. More plot. Okay. Very exciting, very exciting. I haven't been back here in years. Oh, yeah, because Kelly's sitting on her car. Doesn't look like anyone else has either. Remember how Dad used to bring Ben and me up here almost every weekend? Oh no, this is the grandparents' house that she was visiting at first, I think. Okay. Mom never came with us. I don't think she liked you. Well, that's a cruel thing to say to your at your dead grandparents' house. So let's say she was always working the weekends. I remember thinking that I never got to see her when I was a kid. Grandma used to say that she was a bad mother for that. She wasn't. I think she did everything she could for us. I know that she's not the best with Ben. Not like Grandpa was, you know? But she tries to understand him. You know, I've barely seen Ben since I came home. I should I don't know what he's up to, or yeah. I should take him for coffee or something. Does he even drink coffee? Probably not. Coffee just doesn't seem like a very Ben thing, does it? I just like to have a good talk with him. I haven't had a good talk with Dad since I came home either. Maybe I can get him to come out here with me sometime. Oh yeah, he probably wouldn't go for it. He'd probably want to fix everything up. He'll have a big plan for it all. And he'll say something about it being for Ben, so he'd have a nice place to live. Or for me. I don't know. For the both of us? Can you imagine that? Me and Ben living in the same house, alone? We'd probably kill each other. Or maybe not. I guess we haven't had a fight in... God, I can't even remember. Either way, Dad would probably make it halfway through before calling it quits. Still, it wouldn't hurt to get him out of the house. For something other than a trip to the liquor store, I mean. Shit, what time is it? I've been out here for a while. Mom might be getting worried. Sounds like a storm coming in. I should probably get going. Aw, so we just... What's this? Oh, she's finding the guitar pick, I'm assuming. Yep. Aw, so that's like... That's it. That's for real it. That's everything. So just give us a little extra scene of what she was at her, the grandparents' house. Because that's where she was driving home from. Okay, so that is, for real, everything that 3-4 Home has to offer. It's all done. We've completed everything. I've really liked it. I even like Ben's stories. They're cool. But, that's officially it. We're putting a wrap on 3-4 Home. Hope you guys have enjoyed it. Hope you guys like the game.